Welcome back to another episode of SItar Gurukul. The song I was just playing is a famous song written by the national poet of Bangladesh called Kazi Nazrul Islam. This song is titled Mone Pore Aaj. I would highly recommend you to listen to this. If you notice that most of the melody that I played during this song, I was pulling on the strings rather than playing it on frets. This very phenomenon is called Meend. So it is essentially a thing that was borrowed from vocal music, but it was so popular and so commonly used in vocal music that soon it found its way into instrumental music. In sitar, however, this phenomenon was greatly expanded by the doyen of Imdad Khani Gharana, Ustad Vilayat Khan. In this lesson, we are going to start very simple exercises where we start learning Meend. And Meend is definitely one of the most important components when you are going to learn sitar. Having that said, I would like to also add one more thing. By this time, I take it that you have a visible line on your index finger. If you do not, I would not recommend you to start this lesson yet. I would recommend that you finish or you keep on doing the previous exercises first, and when you think that you have a prominent line that stays overnight and is still visible in the morning and is hard enough, only then can you move on to this exercise. This is very, very important. And with that said, with these exercises, we are going to get a similar line on our middle finger, even though the purpose of the middle finger in the sitar is mostly pulling and coming back from the last note of a phrase that you are going to play. So, I am going to teach you a simple exercise that is not only going to develop your Meend skills, or in this case at least start it, but it is also going to give you a test and advancement of skills in ear training. So without further ado, I am going to show you how to do this exercise or how to start pulling Meends. But before that, it is also important that you have a finely tuned instrument. If you do not know how to tune your sitar perfectly, go back to chapter 2, where I have showed in details how to tune a sitar. So here I go playing Meend. So what we are going to do is that we are going to place both our fingers in sa. Now here one thing will come into action, which I would recommend you to go see chapter 3 and chapter 2, where I teach you how to hold the sitar. Back there I mentioned that the left hand position like this is going to have this gap. Now that gap is going to be more and more relevant as we go along, especially since we are till here. This gap is going to help us in taking the Meends the perfect way. Now when I say the perfect way, not at all do we want to use our finger strength, because the muscles here are way too weak and will not be able to tolerate all that stress for much long. So we are going to use our elbow, and we are going to use our shoulders to pull on the elbow, which will eventually pull on our wrist. So what we want is our thumb, the first joint of the thumb, to be parallel to our index finger, something like this. So I also taught you that I think one of the best ways to hold the sitar on your left hand is to hold it like you would a baby's head, like this, not like this. Even though it's very difficult for you to really understand what I'm doing while I'm playing the sitar, because if you look at it from the front, it feels like I'm holding it like this, but in reality I'm holding it like this, and the thumb is covering the lower 25% of the back, so that you have this gap which rests here. So what we want is, when we pull, the middle finger, the thumb is going to be our pivot point, and we are going to pull like this. So instead of this, we are doing this. So it doesn't have to happen in one day, but it just has to happen someday. So the exercise is we are going to take 1 fret Meend. Now, what do I mean by 1 fret Meend? 1 fret Meend means that if we are going to place and pull from 1 fret, we are going to play the next fret, the frequency or the note of the next fret. So if I pull to create the sound of the next fret only, that is going to be a 1 fret Meend. So for example, if I pull from Sa in order to get Re, that is going to be a 1 fret Meend. If I pull from Sa to Ga, that is going to be a 2 fret Meend. Why? Because one, we are going to omit that, the one we are going to pull the note from. Secondly, Re is fret 1, Ga, our eventual goal in that case, is the 2nd fret. So there is, and so on and so forth. So for example, if I had to pull a Meend from Sa to Ma, that would be a 3 fret Meend. So we are going to start with the first the 1 fret Meend system. So here what I want you to do is have a tanpura around. I don't currently have one, but you could have one. Even if you don't, at least get your instrument tuned. And then the trick is that you have to make sure that you strum the chikari in a downward position like this. So all the strings except for the main string or the baj plays. And second, while that sound sustains, you're going to stroke on Sa and pull from there to get a Re. Now more into that later, let me demonstrate first. So I play Sa first. And then from there, I play the chikari again and play Re. So what I did here is that I went from Sa to Re and I kept on pulling and micro adjusting till I thought the Re was perfect. That is exactly what you are going to do. But I'm going to demonstrate one more time. So one thing that we the beginners do sometimes is that the moment we think that the Re has not it wasn't perfect, we come back and try the Re again. The best way to develop that muscle memory, because what we are dealing here is practically distance. So we need every distance from every note to the next note and further. That distance needs to be memorized. It has to be in your muscle memory. So in order to get that muscle memory, what I recommend is once you hit Re or you're close to Re, don't start from the Sa again. Instead, just keep adjusting to the Re till you think you got the Re right. And when you're getting the Re right, stand there, play the Re a few times, come back and start from there again. So that way, every time you keep on doing the same thing, you're going to eventually notice that the frequency of you actually hitting the perfect Re is gradually getting higher. So one more time. And then gradually I'm going to move on to Re for Ga. So and then from Ga to Ma. Ma to Pa. One thing that you have to notice here is that for anyone who has average sized fingers like mine, it's going to be difficult for you to keep both your fingers in one single fret after the re fret, because you don't have much gaps here. So in that case, what you're going to do is the relevant notes, I mean sa, re, ga, ma. When you're playing from ma, I suggest that you hold the ga fret with your index and the ma fret with your middle finger. So if you're going to play ga and ma, for example, so likewise you're supposed to place the index on the re and the middle on the ga, and so on and so forth. You keep on going to sa, for example, pa, dha, dha, ni, and then you keep on coming back. So one more thing I would like to add here, that when you keep the tanpura on and you have the perfectly tuned sitar, or at least as near as it could get, and also when I mean tuning, I just don't mean the top strings. You need to start to learn how to tune the bottom strings or the sympathetic strings as well. If you cannot, go watch that episode 2 where I teach tuning. If you have further confusions which are very natural, just write down in the comment box or mail me on my given email address, and I'll be more than happy to reply to you. So that's it for today. This practice does not have to be practice, it just has to be there. And I would recommend this practice as we are building layers of practice. This practice should make its way on as the last practice for you in your routine. So as I said, that we start with the right hand practice, which is dara dara, then we do the jhala, then we do the sargam, and then eventually we are going to play Meend. And that's it for today. I hope these lessons are helping you out. I hope your sitar journey is getting smoother day by day, and I cannot wait for your feedback. Thank you. Take care. See you in the next class.